I want to talk a little bit about best case scenario narcissists that have changed. Now, what I want to say is that there is a specific situation that can be life altering for narcissists, high functioning narcissists, right? This can be mortification. So, if a narcissist reaches full identity destruction, like they have a mortification event, they lose their family, their job, everything comes crashing down, to a point where they may require hospitalization. What can happen is that in that state, it's well past injury, they can have momentary empathy because that emotional state will then project onto the people in their lives, the people that they've hurt. And they will feel tremendous shame, guilt, remorse, pain, suffering that they will, connect with the experiences of other people that they did not experience when hurting them, that they didn't have any affect from doing these things to get supply. And so I've engaged with some of these individuals, right? Now, the thing is that this doesn't fix the disorder, but what it does is this experience is so horrific, and they attribute it to the things that they did that caused this total collapse, right? Their own behavior is what resulted in this self-destruction. And they will vow to never let this happen again. Keep in mind that the false self of a narcissist is a defensive maneuvering for somebody that didn't develop a personality and was deeply traumatized. And so what they will do is they will re-idealize themselves and configure this identity in a manner to try to optimize themselves so that they can avoid being abusive. Now, the thing about it is they will always be a narcissist, and so this will then just inform their consciousness, meaning they're going to still have to fight, their own emotional drives. They will always need supply. They will need acknowledgement and reinforcement for this new version of themselves. And I would say that, when you look at some of the better of the self-aware narcissists that share and are committed to making a difference for people, this is likely to be something that happened in their lives. And so I've engaged with, and I've had people, like I have a follower on my YouTube page that actually meaningfully contributes within the live streaming, and, while, he'll always be a narcissist, there is still something, commendable about the struggle. And what I mean by that is that, a conscious effort to fight himself from within to attempt to atone for the things that have happened within his own family. That for him, he lost everything. He lost his family, his kids. And when he was in that state, understanding, having just been diagnosed with this disorder, it explained everything that he had gone through in his life. In that space of mortification, he could experience some semblance of the pain and suffering that he had caused others. Now, when they exit that state, it's merely that they can be informed by that previous experience. It doesn't really create, a change in their emotionality, their capacity for real empathy on an emotional level. I mean, it'll enhance their cognitive empathy. It'll inform them, and it can be, quite a life-changing event. I've experienced in my lifetime, I've seen dramatic, changes with people that I've known where they don't hardly resemble the way they used to be at an earlier age, or they've got a lot more self-control. They don't get triggered that same way, at least not in the context of our relationships, but they nonetheless become aware of their ongoing need for supply. And they may not call it supply because some of those people kind of did it on their own, like without therapy, and they didn't get diagnosed. But I know people that I consider to be, self-aware narcissists absent a diagnosis, that they have explored the inner workings of their mind, and they have taken on the role of like a godlike figure of generating their own version of reality. And they literally set up structures for supply, meaning like friendships that are regularly, nearly scheduled, where it's like almost mutual admiration, like support for the success, and they do a lot of the work to try to preserve themselves within a positive mindset, and so those people, would also be very sensitive to negativity because it's a very threat to, their current state, meaning that, when somebody like this is trying to idealize themselves, negativity is, a reminder of their weakness, vulnerability, and what's underneath the false self. And so for that reason, narcissists, even like the self-aware types, even if they're not diagnosed, are very protective of their energy, that they're desirous of positive relationships, like, almost transactional cheerleading and support. And so they often will share what they're doing that's good, or they'll do good things like communal narcissist type behavior to get a positive affect, that they want to be good people, but nonetheless need supply, and nonetheless will get triggered, nonetheless will get injured, nonetheless will experience a desire to discard friends that they might consider unsupportive. Because often, I think for these types of narcissists, they don't often differentiate between the way their mind works and that of normal people. That I think a lot of narcissists, even ones that have aspired towards a lot of self-awareness through different types of work that they've done, I think a lot of them project their own mind onto other people in terms of trying to understand other people. And so you might have these types that are like healers. They might be into all the same stuff, like spiritual stuff, and, participate in seminars for self-improvement, read books, and are all about inspiration. And so in some ways, they represent, in my view, like, as well as communal narcissists, sort of like a social ideal. People who are at least modeled after attempting to do good for other people. And while, for us, it may be insincere knowing that they are merely after supply, in the overall big picture, we have to accept that these people exist. And in instances where you have these kind of people, I don't see really anything wrong with, acknowledging their effort and the good things that they do, because at least it keeps them preserved in that way of existing, and they can be bright, they can be creative, and they can do good things in their lives. It's just that you're always going to have to understand the nature of the pathology, the potential for, friction, discards, narcissistic injuries, possible betrayals, or, things like that. And then sometimes they'll come back, it's just, it's a really difficult thing, really challenged life. But, as you could see, there's a lot of narcissists that end up living on the surface reasonably good lives, or very successful lives, at least materially speaking. And nonetheless, those people are always going to have some challenges when it comes to interpersonal relationships, close relationships, romantic relationships, that a lot of the behaviors that are, categorized in the framework of narcissistic abuse, even if the other person isn't willfully abusive, they always are going to have to project. They're always going to react to things that threaten their positivity. They're always going to idealize people. They're always going to need supply. And even with their best efforts, their way of experiencing reality is going to potentially be toxic for some people in their lives. That they may have idealized friends and they may have stable relationships socially, but generally speaking, there's always going to be somebody that doesn't experience them in that context. And so, you might have some of those friends, and like for you, they could be great friends, but there may be someone that they work with or somebody in their life that gets the mask dropped, And so that's the reality, is that, when you're going through a smear campaign, that's why you're so isolated, is because other people may be experiencing that other dynamic, that social dynamic, that perfect person, that ideal person, that communal person. So, this conversation really wasn't meant to say that, a relationship with a narcissist is ever going to be an ideal. because they cannot shake the disorder under any circumstance.